Nozipo. Good thank Baba Bing for that amazing libation. You know, it's funny. I was asked to do the libation at first, and like in my head, I was like, I'm hoping either Baba Bing or Baba Crow is here to do this libation because it's like nobody can top those libations. You know what I mean? It's like there's something about the elders, right?
You still a young man.
I'm gonna claim that one. And so, and I think that's probably why we're here today, right? It's a testament to our elders, right? And to give our flowers to our Queen Mother, right? Who has done amazing things throughout the years, and a chance to give you your flowers and to this acknowledge what you mean to the community. I cannot tell you how my phone's been blowing up with people about coming here today, and then there's people in other states, you know what I mean, that are like, oh, wish I could be there, and this, that, and other, you know what I mean? And so we're so honored that get a chance to have some time with you. And you know, like, I just want to say personally before we begin just how much I appreciate you, you know, and your patience with me, your guidance with me, you know, every time I see you, I like that. Because I'm working my PhD, you know what I mean? I get distracted easy. So yeah, I think we kind of want to break up today into kind of two different parts, right? The first part is kind of getting to know you better and just to hear some of your life story. And then the second part to kind of hear some of your wisdom and your nuggets and jewels that you want to share with us, right? So let me start by saying, how are you doing today? Oh, excuse me. Yes, you are right. Can I get permission from the elders to speak?
Yes.
Yeah. So in African tradition, right, we always ask for permission of our elders to speak, right? So like I was in error by not asking. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I thank you for doing that because as you say, in African tradition, it is important to show respect to those who came before you. In fact, we always, anybody who was older than you, you said sister, you said brother, you said auntie, you said mama, you said grandma, you said grandpa. And we carried that with us, even during enslavement, and even until very recently. I know, especially down south, still people still do that. You don't call an elder by their first name. You address them with respect. So I'm grateful that you do that and carry that on. And it's really essential to show respect. That's part of Ubuntu. Ubuntu doesn't just mean you are I and I am you. It means more than that. It means we respect one another. So thank you.
That's right. Good thanks. So how you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad you asked me that. Because, you know, when I first came here, people would say, how you doing? And I would stop, and just when I'm getting ready to say how I'm really doing, and they would, I'm supposed to say, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? How do you answer a question with another question? I was confused. Because in my culture, when somebody asks you how you're doing, they really want to know how you are doing, how your parents are doing, how your community is doing, how the whole village is doing. And they will be patient, and they will listen, and they will not say too much information. So I'm going to tell you how I'm really doing. First of all, I am just humble to see all of you here. You know, you could have been having your dinner. Some of you had to go to work. You are tired. So if some of you start snoozing, I will forgive you because you had a long day. But you came, and I'm humbled that you showed up. I am so grateful to Michael. I don't know where he's at. He's carrying a chair back there. I'm always doing something. I'm grateful that he thought of me to bring me here. And I say that because at my age, I'll be 80 next year. And the older you get, the smaller your world becomes. Thank you. you lose co-workers, you lose friends, some of your friends can't hear you even on the phone anymore. Your world becomes triangular. It's hospital, nursing home, funeral, hospital, nursing home, funeral. So your world gets smaller and smaller. So I am so great that today He widened my world so I could have all these people around me. And I'm really grateful to you, my son, Amaha. I get on your case all the time, focus, get that PhD, but I'm thrilled that I'm not getting interviewed by another old person like me. That is somebody young, because we're supposed to pass the torch on while it's still lit. It's no point passing on a dead torch. Who's going to try to figure out how to turn it back on? How to light it? No, we have to pass it on while it's still lit. So I'm grateful to you for that. So I'm doing fine.
It's interesting. So when I hear you speak just now, like how your network has gone smaller, but like every time I see you, you're going from bus to bus, from place to place, and like Mama Zipo was in like 20,000 places at one time. You know what I mean?
750 bus this morning.
There it is.
Hey,
so I appreciate that. And then let me ask this. Raise your hand if you've been caught in a Mama Nozipo picture. Mama paparazzi picture. Look at that. Almost the whole room, right? It's been at least one picture.
But I'm a historian.
Yes.
And I want to tell our story.
That's right. So what got you into photography?
Curiosity. And also self-determination. Kuchichagulia. I don't want other people telling my story. I don't want people coming to my area for a week or two and becoming experts on CNN about what my neighborhood is. I will tell our story, and we will tell it together.
Yes. Being the protagonist in our stories is very important. How would you describe your life growing up? Right, underneath apartheid. I'm curious of how would you, looking back, how would you describe that experience?
Very interesting. Sometimes people ask me this question, when did you first encounter racism? And they always surprised by my answer. My answer is long before I was born. And I will go not that far back, but I will go as far as my great-grandmother, who passed on in the 50s when she was 110. She was really ready. This Friday was the last Friday of the week, and she was excited because the following week she was going to get up earlier than anybody, like the older kids now, because she was going to be going to school, and she was going to be able to come back and do homework like they do, and she was actually going to do pre-going to school work before she goes to school, then go to school, then come back and do homework, and then do post-homework work. She was really, really excited. Well, the excitement was cut short because a white man she had never seen before, where she lived in a farm that the family owned. They hardly ever saw anybody of European descent in their neighborhood at all, period. Actually, the only time they did was when they went to town. And that would be maybe once a month, or maybe even every 3 months. They didn't have to go to town. The only reason they went was to get something that they didn't grow or something that they didn't make, which was everything else they did themselves. They were self-sufficient, self-reliant. So the guy came and he said, well, things have changed. This is my land now. As of Monday, everybody's going to work for me, including the children. So my great-grandmother never got a chance to go to school because the very time she thought she was going to go to school for the first time was the time she was told she was going to be a farm worker, a little bitty girl. It continued with my mom. My mom actually went to teacher training school and became a teacher. But when she got married, the inspector, who's kind of like similar to like the superintendent here, came and said, when you know how you African women make too many children, it's once you get married, so you can't teach no more. So her teaching job was gone and she had to become a maid. And when she became a maid, when I was born, she couldn't get maternity leave. She had to, the water breaks, you drop the child and you go back to work. And she could not breastfeed me. She couldn't even pump milk because she had to breastfeed her employer's child. So the result, of course, was I ended up with malnutrition and kwashiorkor and almost died. So that's how I ended up living with my grandmother and my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother, both of them were healers, and they brought me back to life. And this has continued, and I could go on and on and on. And then in Dayton, Ohio, I was standing by Walgreens on Salem in Philadelphia, and these two white guys just called me the N-word and poured whatever drink they were drinking all over me, and just me just standing there minding my own business. I was working on Wayne Avenue. This is not too long ago. I was working on Wayne Avenue, and this guy was following me, calling me every name. When I got on the bus driver could see the look in my face, and he said, "What's wrong? Where's that smile?" You know, everybody likes my smile. And when I told him, he stopped the bus and got off and told the guy off. Of course, when he got back on the bus, the guy called him the N-lover because the bus driver did not look like me. He looked exactly like him. But he took the stand against racism. So time and again, I ask myself, when did I go back to South Africa?
So I'm not sure if everybody knows, but some may know, and to the extent that you feel comfortable, like that like we're in the presence of an actual freedom fighter. You know what I mean? Someone who stood up against an apartheid regime that said that one human being is naturally superior to another human being. And so I want to see if you feel to the extent you feel comfortable, if you can share a little bit about like what that means to be a freedom fighter and to understand. Because the interesting thing about apartheid, right, is that apartheid was a Jim Crow American, right, phenomenon that like got taken to South Africa and then put on steroids. You know what I mean? And so I'm curious of the connection between Jim Crow and apartheid. But like I also wonder if you could share something about being a freedom fighter, like how you got here. You know what I mean? Because you didn't get here because you just chose to go, right? And so to the extent you feel comfortable.
Well, I had no choice, It was even if I was the most compliant little African, I still would have been thoroughly, completely, absolutely oppressed. So, I had to make a choice, and the choice was not to take it. I had no choice because from way back it's in my genes. One of my grandfathers was in the First World War, and you can look this up. There's a ship is called Umendi, M-E-N-D-I, and it was sunk by the French, and you can see, and my grandfather was on that ship. During the Second World War, I was born right towards the end of the Second World War. And I remember many of my grandfathers, great uncles, with wooden legs, with one arm, with one eye, because they had fought against the Nazi regime during the Second World War. They didn't have a clue about really what this war was about. It had really nothing to do with them, but they understood that there was something going on that was very, very wrong. And they had to make sure that they were part of the solution, not part of the problem. Of course, when they came back, They came back to worse conditions. They came back to Jim Crow, as you know it here, segregation. And it got even worse when it became apartheid, because apartheid was known as a crime against humanity. But then when I would talk to my elders here, who had been in the Second World War, they would tell me exactly the same stories. You know, my neighbor, Mr. Rancho, you know, who fought in the Battle of the Bulge, you know, he would tell me, and I would say, am I talking to him or am I talking to one of my grandpas? You know, so the situation has always been very similar. And the situation between this country and South Africa has been synonymous in so many ways. You know, whenever I see Guy Jones, I always apologize for staying here too long in his country without permission, because I know how it feels when people just show up and don't leave. You know, and don't even ask for permission, because that's what happened to us. You know, on April the 6th, 1652, Jan van Riebeeck from Holland just showed up uninvited and unannounced and stayed. And not only stayed, started taking, I'm taking your dining room, I'm taking your living room, I'm taking your kitchen, you go out there in the garage. No, in fact, you go outside. You know, so I understand that very well. And, you know, talking about Jim Crow, as I said, apartheid really started only in 1948. You know, I was already 4 years old, but actually our demise started in 1652 when our land was removed from us. So I had no choice. You know, I had to get that land back. It's not back yet, so I haven't stopped.
Right.
Yes, but if the struggle continues, it's not yet Uhuru.
Right. Yeah, let's continue. Right. So yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't made that connection until this hearing you talk just now about how, you know, like in America, coming back from World War II was seen as at that pivotal moment, right? How people fought for freedom and then they came back here and were subjected to horrible conditions and tried to be relegated back to second-class citizenship, right? But I had not made a connection that like the same thing happened in South Africa as well. So that's a deep parallel of like how, you know, you can fight for one thing and then come back home and find out that like, you know, you're still trying to put in this state of second-class citizenship, right? Which is why, you know, people have to, you know, continue to struggle and fight to dismantle the notion of, you know, hierarchy amongst human beings, right? So I'm curious, like, when you got to America, I know at one point you was working with American friends. Can you talk about, and you was touring around letting people know about the apartheid. You want to talk a little bit about that, or?
Well, I can go back a little bit. You know, during apartheid, several things could happen to you if you had a big mouth like mine. You either, you know, could be arrested and thrown in jail for a very, very, very long time, and all of you know one person, only one person, Nelson Mandela. There were several people, including some of my own relatives, who were relegated into Robben Island long before he went in there, and they were still there after he left. In fact, we still have political prisoners in South Africa even today. That could happen to you. You could be banned, you know, again. You know, you always saw on TV Winnie Mandela, but there were several other people, you know, who were banned. And banning meant that you were supposed to be at the police station at a certain time in the morning and a certain time in the evening, which means you couldn't leave town. You were only allowed to be around maybe 2 or 3 people at the most, which means you couldn't go to school, you couldn't go to the store, you couldn't go to church, you couldn't go anywhere, because there would be more than 2 or 3 people there. You know, or you could just simply disappear. Nobody ever hear anything about you. Or you could be beaten to death like Steve Biko, you know, who was one of the kids who were going to school with me around the same time. We were going to different schools, but he used to come to my school all the time. Or you could get an exit permit, which is what I got, which means you could be kicked out, but you could never come back. And that meant, you know, you lost touch with your family because they listened, they kept your mail, they listened to the phone. I couldn't even attend my mom's funeral, You know, even today, I don't even want to remember the day when she passed, or the day when I had to tell her, it's okay, go ahead, join the ancestors without me being there. I will never forget that day, but I don't even want to think about it, and I will never forget that. But as painful as it was to be kicked out like that, it was the biggest mistake that they made. Because those of us who got out, we were louder than loud can be. And we were able to connect with the peoples of these different countries. One thing I learned from a very young age was that there's a difference between the government and the people. You know, the United States government was always supporting the South African government. And I know this for a fact. When I used to go to the UN to speak all the time, the United States would always veto what the freedom fighters were asking for every single time. And not only veto, but they would convince other countries to do likewise or join them. And if they refused, they would threaten not to give them aid or to do this or do that. So, but very early, I knew that the American people didn't feel that way. So I talked to the American people. And that's what helped all of us, because we went straight to the people. You know, my old professor over there, Gary Mishner, knows what I'm talking about. You know, making friends. He belongs to a group that friendship. Yes, and they make friends with the individuals, with the families, with the people of those different countries, even countries that we're not supposed to go to. And that makes such a big difference. And that's what happened with me when I got here. First of all, when I got here, I was a pariah, you know, freedom fighter. Ooh, that must be a terrorist, you know. So people were not sure how to look at me or how to. The very first pastor who took care of me was Pastor Jones at College Hill Church. You know, he let me bring I taught the African dance group. He let us dance in the basement. I was able to bring people from all over my country to come and speak at his church, even freedom fighters straight from the bush, and he knew they were straight from the bush, and he let them come and speak. The other person who was very, very dear to me, I will never forget, is our mayor. I still call my mayor, Mayor James H. McGee. He came to every single event that I held, not to shake hands, not to kiss babies, not to come to campaign, but to come and support. And he would stay right through the event. You know, most politicians show up and disappear. No, he would stay right through the event. You know, Jean Lovelace, you know, he was always on my side. And he introduced me to C.J. McLean, who did not just support me, but he actually took it to the state legislature when it came to fight for divestment. You know, our old elder in the elders council, Jesse Gooding, you know, he had me covered. You know, I would speak to the NAACP. You know, many people like that. It was those individuals, you know, who helped me. And the American Friends, they took the ball and ran with it. You know, I was able to go all over the place speaking. You know, and it got to the point where they introduced me to their headquarters, which is in Philadelphia. And the head of the Africa office there was Jerry Hammond. And every year we would go to either the north or the south or the east or the west or the Midwest in the United States for up to 3 weeks at a time. And he would take Africans from different parts of Africa, each one where there was a conflict. And we would go and directly appeal and speak to the people. In fact, we were the first people who even brought the idea that people didn't want to hear, that there was actually slavery in Mauritania and slavery in the Sudan. We actually used to even have conflict with people who would say, oh no, there's no such thing. And what he would do, he would actually bring someone who had been enslaved, not just a person who read about it, but someone who had been enslaved, to come and tell their story. So American Friends is now the building. We passed it on to the NAACP, but the American Friends was very, very instrumental in helping me to go all over the country.
Good day. I'm gonna give a clap for that. So that I keep emphasizing this because I think, like, you know, people see, like, they see you now and they don't understand, like, how you became who you are, you know, and all the people that you touched along the way, right? It's like, I want to, like, help people to understand more of, like, all the amazing work that you've done over these, all these years, you know. What was I gonna ask you? So after the, well, you were with American Friends for a while, right? What were some other significant times that you would like to share about? I want to talk about the Elders Council at some point, you know, but what else has stood out to you? Like when you start taking pictures, like as a historian, like.
When I finally got a camera. I was always taking mental pictures. And mental pictures, I took them in the form of writing down what I saw. In fact, even now, I'm still going to Sinclair, taking a class. It's called Writing About My Life and Times. And when you become a senior citizen, please join that class. It's called Writing About My Life and Times. And you can write anything you want about your life. It's not stressful. It's very good for you to pass it on to your children. And the reason I say this is very, very important is because, again, it's important for you to tell your story. Don't let people who have visited your country for a week to come and tell your story. You tell your story. It's even more important nowadays, when books are being banned, when people's stories are being just wiped out, and people's mouths are literally being shut and zipped. Don't you dare tell your story. This is very, very crucial that we do that. You know, events like this should not be, this is talking to Mama Nozipo. We should have events like this, not just at Sinclair. We should have them in our churches. We should have them in our sororities. We should have them in all our organizations. You know, it is important. It is incumbent upon us to pass this on to our children, so that our children don't turn around and have to buy their own culture. And by the time they buy it, it's impure, it's not real, it's not the truth anymore, and start believing that that's what it is. We already need a mental revolution, because there's a lot of things that we claim are African and they are not. And Olabisi is looking at me smiling, Mama Olabisi, because she knows where I'm going. Time. I cannot stand it when somebody say, oh, it's black people's time, it's colored people's time, it's African time. No, it's not. It is not. First of all, African people, we are the ones who invented time. So if we were going to invent time, we were not going to be wishy-washy, lucid about it. We were going to be precise about time. When I was coming up in the villages, if the chief called a meeting and you were late, you got fined. The first time you might be fined half eggs. The next time you'll be a dozen. The next time might be a chicken. And if you are consistently being late, it could get up to being a cow. You know, so that's how serious we take time, African time. As a freedom fighter, time is a matter of life and death. If I said to Juanita, or I said to Venice, or I said to Jay Sean, we are going to meet at 3 o'clock on 3rd and May. That doesn't mean 5 minutes before 3, and it definitely doesn't mean 1 minute after 3. Because if we do that, one of us is going to get killed. So time is very important. But we bought into that. Somebody who is not an African told us this is how Africans act. They slow, they take their time, they move, they lazy, and they never on time. No. So get out of that. Stop buying your culture, your impure culture, because it's not even your culture anymore now. It's dirty. It's naughty. It's not true. So I'm very much into that. I'm adamant about it.
Yeah, I mean, hearing you speak, you know, like there's the proverb about how elders are like a walking library, right? And why it's so important to have spaces like this, which I agree shouldn't just be at Sinclair, right? To be able to pass that down, because it's one thing to hear about in books, to read about in movies. It's next thing to hear the real life example,
exactly.
Right? To hear the context, right, and to pass these stories down, right, intergenerationally, right, so that you know, the kids of Watoto don't lose the story, because we're all part of a lineage, you know what I mean? And so it's like, and right now we're inheriting seeds that we didn't sow, you know? And so it's like, I appreciate hearing these stories and wisdom of how to come together. Which makes me, so you are one of you helped found and one of the inaugural members of the Dayton Africana Elders Council, you know, so I want to see if you take some time to share about that and the importance of the council in the village.
Well, thanks to you and Abiodun over there. Some people call him Shaq, but I call him Abiodun. The two of you came up with the idea that we should form an Africana Elders Council. I think that the Dayton Africana Elders Council is specifically important and unique, because usually a bunch of old people may shuffle around and decide, oh, we'll form a group. And it's an exclusive group, you know, old people, maybe they play bingo, you know, or whatever, you know. But no, this one is specific. The young people saw the need. They knew that they had the zest and the zeal and the energy and everything, and they could do this, they could do that, but they knew that they were doing all this standing on somebody's shoulder. So they looked back like the Sankofa bird for those shoulders, and they found us. And we acquiesced. We were glad to do that. Being Davis and Mama Audrey and Mama Olabisi. Is there another elder around? Baba Kuumba in the back over there. He's hiding. Yes, they pointing at him. Yeah, you know. CDC, I see you. Yes, yeah. We felt that it was important to again to pass on that baton, you know, to pass on that torch, you know. And when you are passing, my daughter is late with her my grandbaby.
She's been here. I'll bounce her.
She's doing the color I told you I don't put up with it. But anyway, it was very important for us to continue this, you know. And this is not an exclusive group. This is not a punitive group to punish people. You know, this is a group to make sure that our culture continues. You know, we are running a race, and this is a serious race for survival as a people. And so when we're running this race, we have to make sure we pass on the baton, and make sure that we pass on when we can still see that we are giving it to the right team member. Imagine passing the baton to a member of the other team. No. And if you get too old, you can't see too well, you can't hear too well, you're going to give it to the wrong person. You know? And that is why we have nation builders who are right below the elders, and we have warriors, because we wanted to continue and to make sure that it stays in the team, in in the correct team. Mhm.
Yeah, so Dr. Shack had mentioned, he wanted to ask, he has a question about like what does community mean to you? And I'm going to ask it a little bit different because like since we know about community but we don't know about village, I want to see if you could talk about like what does it mean to live in a village, right? Because I think like if we're going to step into a space of like reimagining our relationships amongst each other, I think like changing the language is important to like changing the dynamics, right? So like what does a village mean to you?
Well, for me, it's not that complicated. It's family. It's family, and family takes care of each other. Family is responsibility, comes with responsibility. You make sure that the beds are made. You make sure that the food is cooked for everybody. You don't say, oh, since I eat potatoes only, I'm just going to cook potatoes. No, you cook what everybody can eat. When I was coming up, the children, for example, we had one big dish, a big bowl, and we would all sit around that bowl and eat from that bowl. Now you would say, oh my goodness, the kids that eat faster would eat all the food. No, the kids, this was a way to teach the kids how to share. The kids who had a higher appetite learned to curb their appetite, and the older kids learned to feed the younger kids. The kids who liked more meat and less vegetables, they shared back and forth. That's what the village does. You look at the needs of each person, and that's what the community does. You look at the needs of each person. Take education, for example. In the olden days, you didn't say, I'm going to be a doctor because I want to make a lot of money. No. The community would look at you from a very young age, see what your talents are and develop them, and even give you a name that would make sure and build you up. And the name is very important. I'll go back to that. During enslavement, they understood that the name is very important to Africans. And that's why the first thing they did was to remove your name and give you, in South Africa, they used to give us what they call Christian name, which was a British name, to move you away from your culture. Because, for example, one time a young lady heard from one of my teachers is here, heard my name, and she said, oh, she's from South Africa. And my teacher was like, do you know her? No. She knew from Nozipo is a South African name. Imagine if your names were not removed from you. You wouldn't be looking to what is that?
Ancestry.com.
Ancestry.com. You know exactly which part of Africa you came from. So things like that are very important. And what the village and the community would do is to look at what was in need. If a doctor was needed, yes, they would choose a child who was good at math, who was good at science, etc., and that child would be nurtured into becoming a doctor. They would look at a child, who could argue, who had a big mouth, who was quick, and they would send them to law school, but according to the need. But if you don't own the land, how are you going to do that? And this is exactly what is happened with us. The community would need a clinic, and a rich South African of European descent would say, oh, I want a golf course over there, and we need a clinic. But because they own the land, they would build a golf course. So again, even when I used to speak to people here about apartheid, I always made sure that they understood that it went beyond apartheid. It went to 1652. Do you all remember I said 1652 in the beginning? I hope you're taking notes. I used to be a teacher. I'm going to ask you for homework.
Yeah, I appreciate you making the connection between of ownership ownership, right? And even, I think like sometimes we're talking about community development, economic development and community development have been separated instead of realizing that like to be able to have practice real self-determination, right? How they need to be together. So yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah, I mean, look at here, what happens when you are renting? The landlord can kick you out whenever they feel like it. And it happens all the time. The program that Kathy Rowell had about eviction, opened everybody's eyes. Everybody who saw. If you didn't see that, I'm sorry you didn't, because it would have really opened your eyes and it would have opened your heart.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you mentioned food before, so I'm curious, where do you get your groceries at?
You mean that jam on Salem Avenue?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, once again, when I first moved here, I've been in Dayton since 1975. When I first came here, I lived in Nashville, Tennessee. I went to Fisk, and then I found a boyfriend and ended up in Dayton in 1975. But there was a lot of grocery stores, there were barber shops. Like, I live off of Lexington, and there's a little strip right there by Rosedale and Lexington. There used to be a barber shop, there used to be a dry cleaners, the best little dry cleaners, there used to be all these little things, and they were owned by black people. Now it's a green space. I have a pet peeve when people say green space, because I'm thinking, what happened to the people who used to live in that green space? Exactly. So yeah, by the time Gem City came, we were in dire need. We were drowning. We really needed to have Gem City Market, and the way we built Gem City Market is the way we should continue to build more other facilities for ourselves, because it is the people's market for real. It's not, I've seen some little markets called the People's Market, and I'm like, who are these people? And you find out it's owned by one family. No, this is truly the People's Market. Gem City Market is. And I was eating a banana yesterday. It was the most delicious banana. And I'm like, why are Gem City Market bananas so delicious? They taste totally different from others. But it's not just because, of where you buy it from. It is the atmosphere. It's the environment it came from. It's the fact that when you walk in the door, the people welcome you. The fruit welcomes you. The vegetables say, come on in. The food says, come and get me and take me home with you. Psychology. It's psychological. That banana probably tastes like any other banana. It came from the same tree, like the one that was in that other store I won't mention. But because I bought it from Gem City Market, it had a special taste. Plus, it was mine. Because I'm a member. Yeah. So I'm picking my banana.
And we appreciate, it was a blessing to walk with you and the community and making the market, right? I mean, we traveled around different places, right?
Yes.
We've done some things to help bring that to fruition.
You didn't take me to Portugal.
We'll make up for that. But yeah, I think I want to shift a little bit, and I want to leave time for the audience members to have some questions too. And I had some questions that I went on Facebook and I asked people, what should I ask Nozipo? And I got some questions. What motivates you?
When I wake up and I open my eyes and I can recognize where I'm at, that's a good day. That's a great day. And I can hear the birds, that is awesome. And all that makes me say, I gotta do something. The other thing that motivates me is my great-grandma. My great-grandma used to say, Go ahead, have your pity party, but make it short. So I have pity parties, but they are very, very short. And she would explain that, you know, when you think you're down in the dumps, remember there's somebody in a worse condition than you in. You know, so sometimes when I get up, my legs are hurting, my back is hurting, my hips are hurting. I go out and I see somebody younger than me with a walker or on a wheelchair, and the party is over. My pity party is over. And not only that, it makes me want to help them. You know, even now, I still will stand on the bus if I see somebody who is worse off than I am. You know, the young kids look at me like, what's she standing up there for? But I will. You know, again, that goes back to Ubuntu. You know, it's in my blood, I can't help it. I've got to do it. If I don't do it, my grandmother will pull my ear, and I will literally feel it pulling my ear. So I really want to keep my ear, so I behave.
That's good. I appreciate that. I appreciate, you know, all these things speak to your heart. You know
Yes.
what I mean? That, of a life that's been lived out. You know what I mean? So, there's a saying, you know, we make the road by walking it. What does that mean to you?
Well, the old people always say, you know, don't, how do they put it, you know, don't do what what does it say?
Do what I say, not what I do.
Just maybe in English, what is that saying? You know,
Do as I say, not as I do.
right, exactly. That saying is in my Xhosa language, and it's just not coming out in English. Yeah. By the way, there's another thing about moving into another country. It can be traumatic. You know, besides the fact that you kicked out, it can be very traumatic. I remember when I first came here, and naturally I looked out and I saw stuff coming down, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's a fire somewhere. Look at all these ashes, you know. And then I said, I thought I had a good sense of smell, but I'm not smelling any fire. Where is this smoke? There's no smoke, and it was snow. Yes. But unfortunately, that was in 72. Unfortunately now, it snows in South Africa, thanks to global warming. So, you know, again, that connection, the world is so connected. You know, we are suffering, just like you're suffering over here. But it is... I digress. I forgot what you asked me.
We make the road by walking.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Well, you know, you live by example. For me, it means living by example. You know, I can't tell you don't be late, and I'm consistently late. You know, because children, especially young people, they watch you. You know, you may not think they are, but they are watching you. They watch every little thing you do, and they that's how they learn. You learn by watching. So, you know, if I'm zigzagging, then the child is gonna zigzag too. You know, if I walk hopping, the child will hop. You know, if your mom and dad are walking on all fours, even if they could walk on two. If they started walking on all fours, all the children in that house would start walking on all fours. So it is very crucial, you know, not to be wishy-washy, you know, not to be fake, like that's what the young people say, you know, and you have to be consistent. And you have to be responsible, because you're not responsible just to yourself. You know, you are responsible to those around you. And you are responsible to those who are coming after you. That's what it means to me.
That's it. I appreciate that. Yeah, you said a lot in there. Like, I appreciate how, you know, you're mentioning like to live by the example or by the compelling. I think that's where our power is at. You know, sometimes we're trying to get everybody else to do something instead of just showing what is possible by the life that we're living, you know. And so,
show me, don't tell me.
Right. So I appreciate that. I think that's the type of culture power within itself too, right? And so being able to do that. What are some lessons that you would tell your younger self if you had the chance to now?
Well, I would probably tell my younger self to listen more to my elders, because when you're young, you think you know it all, and you think it's them and us and them, and it's not. Actually, this gathering here takes me all the way back to my childhood, because at this time of the day, after everybody has eaten and everybody has washed the dishes and everything, this is the time when the elders would gather, the family, sit you down, and start telling stories. And really, this was passing on the history of our people, our story. And they would tell stories by using human beings, by using animals, by using nature, because in our culture, we are supposed to be custodians of Mother Earth. So we learn from Mother Earth, we learn from the birds, we learn from the bees, we learn from the animals. And so this would be the time where the elders would gather the young ones and pass on the stories, and it was really good, because a lot of times you could hear the same story 10 different times, but it would be interpreted in different ways. Each time you learn something new from just that same story. And the other thing that my great-grandmother would do is to ask you at the end of the day, what did you learn today? It didn't matter if you were pretending to be asleep, she would shake you and say, what did you learn today? Because she would tell us, the day you stop learning, you are dead. Well, I didn't want to be dead. I didn't know what dead meant, but it didn't sound good. So I made sure I learned something. And then she would further tell us, she said, the brain is a muscle. And when you don't use your muscle, it becomes flabby. Well, I knew what a brain looked like, because, I grew up in the farm. Sometimes we would go into the farm. What my mother used to do, if we were misbehaving, she would say, you need to be Africanized. And she would send you back into the villages. And you would be Africanized. She wouldn't keep you there for a week. She would keep you there for a whole year. And you will come back a real African, knowing your culture and your values. And so I knew what the brain looked like, because we knew how to slaughter, and the brain is it's not a good looking thing, Yeah. And in my imagination, I'm like, it already doesn't look good. Can you imagine when it's flabby? Oh, no, I don't want a flabby brain, And so those were some of the ways that our elders would teach us, in a small way, but they would stick with you. I don't want a flabby brain, therefore I will learn. I'm going to school, and I'm going to be serious with school. I'm going to definitely learn, and so, it's very, very important for me to be amongst you all, because I really feel like sitting with my great-grandmother and sitting with my grandma and learning. And once again, the stories that they were telling, they did not read about them in the book. These were stories of their lives. And they were not just telling us stories, but they were also teaching us how to survive. They were teaching us how to survive. For example, my grandmother and my great-grandmother used to tell us, now when you're going to school, they're going to teach you this history, their history. Now what you do is, when it's time for exams, write what they say, but you know what the truth is, and the African teachers had to teach what they were told to teach, but they knew the truth. So in other words, when I read Paul Lawrence Dunbar's poem, We Wear the Mask, I'd be like, I've been wearing the mask all my life, it's very, but that was survival, because if you told the truth at the exam, then you would get a F.
Yeah.
But you just went along, but you always knew the truth.
Right. Yeah, that's so neat, because, the boys talk about that, talk about the double consciousness, you know what I mean? Of like how, you have to live in two different worlds, you know what I mean, to survive. And that's been like a common experience amongst Africans, right?
Right.
So I appreciate you sharing that. You've spoken a lot about, your great grandmother, your grandmother. Can you speak to like this, how you see like the intergenerational, right? Because like even we've been having these dialogues lately where we've been gathering people together and right that have this to center intergenerational type of space inside of our community, right? So I must see if you could speak a little bit to that.
Well, I think it's very important because before the African family, worldwide was fragmented and exploded into a nuclear family. When I took sociology, I found out there was something called a nuclear family, and that sounded so toxic to me because all I could think about was Hiroshima. Oh my goodness, how do you live in a nuclear family? But the nuclear family was definitely toxic for the African family. It killed the African family. And even now, when I go home now, I can see the results. I can see the symptoms and I can see the results. But the good thing is that the young people are fighting back to they coming back to the elders. They're not throwing us in nursing homes and forgetting about us, but they are coming back, and talking to the elders to find out that how did we do things, how did we do this, and it's very, very important. I know that here I hear somebody saying, "Oh, I'm the last member of the family." And that breaks my heart because I have thousands and thousands of relatives. I'll never run out of relatives. So, it's a different system. It's a different worldview, period. So, and I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that. But it's very important because, like I said before, we have to pass the torch. We have to pass the baton. If there's these nuclear islands here, how are you going to do that? You can't. There won't be any continuity, and there'll be a lot of unnecessary clashes. And it's actually not just the youth and the elders, it's the African peoples, wherever they are. Whether you're in Australia, you're of African descent, whether you're in China, you're of African descent, in the diaspora. We need to realize that we are one family, the child of the same mother and father, in order for us for this world to respect us, period.
Yeah. I think that speaks to like our sense of a common struggle, right? And our disconnection from our story. Like you were saying before about the importance of saying our own story and even like the value of oral tradition. You know what I mean? Like I think sometimes if it's not written in a book, they say it doesn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. But oral tradition has been a way of keeping stories and the context around for generations and it's interesting, when you're talking about how we've been robbed of that, you know what I mean? And how now's that chance of regaining that. And even to a certain extent, I would say the reimagining blackness, right? Outside of a white imagination, meaning that if we're gonna come into our full humanness, you know what I mean? And so I appreciate that. And sometimes you mentioned, you've been talking about Ubuntu, right? It was something that I really gravitate towards as well, right? But the notion of how we're all interconnected as human beings, you know what I mean? And so, even Dr. King speaks to the notion of how, probably going to be like he said the black church, right? But it was just like who's going to get us back to understanding our common humanity, right? You know what I mean? How to unlearn the system that says like one human being is, and I think part of that comes to this sense of interconnectedness that you mentioned earlier, you know what I mean? Of not only just interconnected to each other, but we're looking at the environment, right? And everything, how it's all interconnected together. So I appreciate you sharing that. And what advice, I'm coming back to that. So I had a question that was given to me earlier by someone on Facebook. And he wanted to know what's the difference between movements in Africa and the U.S. And within that, are there lessons to be learned from like aspects of a global struggle that could be brought here to be used like within within the movements that are happening in America?
Well, there isn't really too much difference. And one of the reasons there isn't too much difference is because African people on the continent and African people in this continent, outside of the continent, have been faced by the same twins. I call them Siamese twins, colonialism and enslavement. So we both suffer from slave and colonial mentality. That's why sometimes you hear people saying, hey, why these Africans don't like African Americans? Or you hear people say, why these African Americans don't like Africans? It's slave mentality and it's colonial mentality. So it's not that one of us has a better way of doing things than the other one. We need to learn that we are one. And we need to sit down and sift the chaff. When you are, when you are sieving, the corn, the chaff has to be sieved through the strainer. We need a strainer, and that strainer can get rid of all that stuff that we don't need. We need that cloth. So we can get rid of all that we don't need. But we have to do it together. The Africans can say, oh, we do it like this, and this was what we will help you. And you can say, oh, we have to come together as one family and decide, what is good for us as a people. And that's, again, where Ubuntu comes from. Ubuntu is not individualistic. We have a common goal, we have a common achievements. If we have a common goal, we have common achievements, and we have common ways of doing things, and we come together. And this has always been throughout our history. I can think specifically of South Africa. Whenever we worked together as a group, as different groups, things worked. They worked. Even during the colonial wars, between the British and the Dutch, because like I told you, in 1652, the Dutch came, and then the British came, and then they fought together over our stuff, like we're not even there. It's like, what's up with this? And so we ended up having these wars, over our land. But each time that different African groups came together, dropped their differences, saw their common goal, and they would achieve each time, like the Xhosa people, we have different groups within the Xhosa people, but we had over a dozen Xhosa wars, and whenever we fought together as Xhosa people, we beat their behinds, the British, the mighty British, yes. Yeah, so I don't look at it as, what can Americans tell us and what can we tell Americans? No, I look at it as what can we tell us together. Sit down and talk and solve it together.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Like finding our common story, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say? And you maybe you said it already, but what you had mentioned like the sifting of like the wheat from the chaff, right? Like what process or like is it dialogue or like what is that way that we can like move forward? You know, like what are your thoughts about that?
Well, one, we have to recognize that we are African people and not be ashamed of that. We have that's the first step right there. And once we get to that point, we can move faster than lightning. You know, as long as we don't know who we are, we don't show we are. You know, oh no, I'm Indian. You know, I hear people who look just like my uncle. You know, and I'm looking like, yeah, have you seen my uncle? You know, so yeah, that's I think the very first step is to unequivocally. What is the word? Unequivocally.
Unequivocally.
I can't say anything. Yeah, the closer came again. You know, be comfortable in who we are. You know, and be responsible. You know, it's not enough to recognize who we are, who you are, you know, and wear your African clothes and all. It's not enough. You know, you know that comes with responsibility. It's a lot of hard work. You know, and once you commit yourself and you know that this is a lifetime commitment. You know, this is not a jumping, jump out type thing. This is a lifetime commitment. You know, and that is one big first step, you know, in achieving your goal.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
And I really have a lot of faith in the young people. You know, because when I look at our history again, going home, you know, back home, even the Mandelas, they were kids when they was strong in the struggle. You know, Sobukwe, they were kids. You know, Lembede, they were kids when they were strong in the struggle. You know, I was in elementary school when we were protesting against Bantu education. You know, and helicopters would come over, and you know, when we were little, you know, of course we couldn't afford to get on a plane. So if we saw a plane, it was exciting, and we would go airplane, and run, you know, along with the airplane. And during the time we were protesting, you know, the kids were like, "Oh, airplane," and the older people were dragging us away, you know, because these were combat planes, you know, and they could drop anything on little bitty kids, you know. So from a very young age, the children of Soweto, you know, they were high school children, you know. During Sharpeville, a lot of young people, you know, passed on. So I continue to have a lot of faith in the youth. The children here, you know, the children who are against gun violence, you know, the children who are against a lot of discrimination against all kinds of people are young people. And that's very exciting, and that makes me know that even after I'm gone, you know, the struggle will continue. So that's encouraging.
Good, thanks. What advice would you give to the younger generation?
Continue doing it, you know, and don't say, "Oh, I'm too young." Like I say, I was in elementary school. You know, you're never too young. You know, because suffering doesn't say I will suffer. I will inflict suffering on a 2-year-old just a little bit, and I will inflict 2 ounces on a 10-year-old, and I will inflict 10 ounces on a old. No. Suffering is suffering, period, you know, with impunity. You know, racism doesn't measure your age. You know, it wipes you out, whether you are unborn, whether you are born, whether you are an adult, you know. So no, don't wait and say, "Oh, I'm still young." Yeah, you can still have a ball. You know, we never really got what is called a chance to be a child in South Africa, but we still had fun. You know, we still had fun. You know, we used to watch. We used to be like from a young age. We would watch the police, when they come in to harass the community. And it was the kids who would warn the elders, that, they are coming, and we would run, we could run. We would trip them and take off. We could run faster than the big, burly, overweight policemen. So, you have to start now. And we have to teach our children between right and wrong from an early age. It's never too late, so that they don't just love themselves, but they love their neighbor and they love the world they live in. And they can look forward to it, because now we are suffering from teen suicide. Why is that? Because the children don't see hope. So it is our duty, to make sure that they see hope. It's our duty to make sure that we let them know that they have the strength to get out of this.
So you had mentioned earlier about passing the baton and the importance of passing a lit baton. And sometimes the baton gets passed so kind of late in the game. So like so what advice, or like how can we like, I watched the World Championships a couple weeks ago, you know what I mean? Yeah. And like that baton exchange, you know what I mean? Yeah. That was a work of art, right? How they passed that baton around. So like, how can we create a scenario where we are passing batons while we're in full stride, instead of later on?
Well, again, I think the example is what you started, and I don't know if you aim to continue at Gem City Market, when you had those intergenerational conversations, with young people. I think that is very, very important. And we should encourage our young not to be scared of old people. We may look strange with the cane, maybe we're kind of shaking, maybe our voice is kind of strange, maybe our hair is not black anymore, maybe we got wrinkles, but we have a lot of wisdom. Don't be afraid. Sometimes I see young people who grow up with my grandkids, and those young people call me grandma, and their mom is like, that's not your grandma. We have to get away from that. We have to get to the point where we know who our next door neighbor is. And if it's an elder, make sure that your children, glean information out of them before they get Alzheimer's disease, because now that's the most prevalent thing. We have to make sure, we do that. We don't talk to each other anymore. I've seen a bus full of people, and everybody. It is the most quiet bus ride because nobody's talking to nobody. And people are texting the person sitting next to them. And I'll be like, ooh, they're gonna get carpal tunnel syndrome. So we have to make it.
Yeah, I feel that. I got one more question, and I'm gonna open it up for the audience. I just remember when we were sitting here at the very first meeting at Baba Bing's studio, where we kind of like pulled people together to start having a dialogue about the possibility of an elder council. Right. And Margaret Peters was there, and she had mentioned that if you are not mentoring somebody, then you're not doing nothing. I mean, I remember she called it out as straight, And so I want to see if you could speak to that, like this notion, because I want to come back to passing this baton, right? Because it's like what can we do to start building like this intergenerational, like the mentoring that we can pass this baton? So I want to see if you could share her words, and I'm going to open it up for audience questions.
Yeah, well, like I said before, children learn from looking at what you're doing. So, if you're doing it in your room, they can see it. So if you want to do it in your room, invite them into your house and show them, You know, there's so many things like Mama Renee, you know, she, you know, the Clandon Institute, we're celebrating the 40th anniversary on the 30th of this month. Yes, and that's exactly what she's been doing. You know, she has been quietly. You don't see her in the news. You know, you don't see her anywhere. She's just quietly mentoring children. You know, she's quietly doing a rites of passage. You know, she's quietly showing them how to do African dance, how to do African drumming, how to sew. You know, how to do quick. You know, bit by bit, and those children are learning. You know, every August, you know, she has a drive, a back-to-school drive, you know, and, you know, I remember one time, you know, a young man was getting married in Alabama, you know, and they told their mom, you know, if Auntie Nozipo doesn't come, I'm not getting married. And the mom was like, huh, what do you mean? And he said, well, she brought me school supplies every year when I was little. So, I mean, it's not something astronomical you have to do. I mean, we're on fixed income, so you know, we haven't won the lottery, so we can afford to do these things. But just saying hi to your child every morning. I see people now on the bus. I've been riding the bus since 1975 when I moved to Dayton. I had a car and a truck, and I still rode the bus. You know, I see people now who have gray hair, who are even on walkers, you know, who say, I remember you used to talk to me, you know, when I was little. There's one of them right there, just you know, you used to talk to me, you know, don't be afraid of your children. I hear people say, I'm scared of going downtown. Them kids, you know, and when they say kids, it's like it's like a four-letter word. You know, that's your children. Talk to your children. Talk to them. Simple. Say hi. How was your day today? You know, what you gonna do? And I see little kids, you know, what you gonna do today? What does that mean? Talk to me, you know, and I make them talk, you know, and after a while, that child will, you know, and they come out of their shell, you know, and some of them will come one day and say, you know, you saved my life. Smile. My great-grandmother taught me about smiling. You know, smile. You know, I smile all the time, and somebody would say, you know what, I had a horrible day. I had the worst day, but your smile did something to me. It doesn't have to be, you know, I know that we are in an intellectual, abstract place here. No, it's simple, practical things, like smiling, like acknowledging. So when you see a homeless person, look at them in the eye and smile and nod. They may cuss you out, but that's okay. That's okay. Next time you see them, they will acknowledge you. They may not look at you, but they'll kind of do like this. Next time, they will look at you. And next time, they will talk to you. I have a lot of homeless people who tell me where there's free food at, where there's free clothes at, because I talk to them all the time. They think I'm homeless too. The human connection is so easy. It's easier for my grandmother used to tell us it's easier to make that human connection. It's easier to be happy than to be mad. She said, do you know what your body goes through when you're mad? Your blood pressure goes up, you know, your heart beats fast, you know, you have a headache, it's like your stomach ache. She would go on and on. She never went to medical school, but she knew all the things. She was talking about stress. She didn't call it that, but she would talk about all the symptoms that affect your body when you are unhappy and mad, especially for no reason at all.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the lesson of how the small can make a difference, right? So we want to open it up for questions from the audience. So I think Mike got a couple microphones. They want to go after? Yeah. Okay.
Mama Nozipo, you look beautiful this evening. I wonder if you might talk to the traditional garments that you're wearing and, you know, the significance of them and the markings that you have on your face this evening.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Africa has over 50 countries. Some say 54, some say 55. Unfortunately, as you know, Africa was cut like a pie, a piece of pie. That's why we have all these different countries. And if you see someone from Africa speaking French, or somebody from Africa speaking English, or somebody from Africa speaking Portuguese, more ways than one, they were usually colonized by that European language group that they are speaking. So we all have these different ways of doing things, but we have the same ways of doing things. One of the things is we are very, very proud of our clothes. We love our clothes. They are very colorful. You see Mama over there, and Baba, you see Baba there with his very bright blue over there. You know, because we come from, there's my friend from Cincinnati, Ohio, way in the back there. We've been friends forever. You know, it's indicative of our culture, it's indicative of our continent, it's indicative of our worldview. To be happy, to be bright, to be vibrant. What I'm wearing is a Tosa outfit. And we always, you see, we mix colors that people may say, oh, how did you mix that color? You know, when I was taking ceramics, I used to have all my paints all lined up, and people were like, how's she gonna mix all those colors? And then when I'm done, they say, oh wow, that looks good. Yeah, but this is a Tosa outfit. And we use a lot of buttons because the button is how you connect things. So it's symbolically, that's why we use a lot of buttons. And of course we use a lot of beadwork, as you can see. You know, again, the beads is a connection. You know, sometimes some of the beadwork from Southern Africa, there's Audrey, my home girl from Cape Town over there. You know, sometimes people will say, oh no, that's from Kenya, you know, but we are the same people, and then they'll say, oh no, that's Native American. Yeah, because we were here. We've been here long before. Does anybody know about this alcoholic guy who had a bad sense of direction? You all know him? Columbus. Yeah. Long before he came here, we were already here, you know, and we decorate ourselves unashamedly. You know, I looked in the mirror and I said, I'm going to do my dots in a certain way this way. You know, or going down, you know, from the north to the south, or from the south to the north, which I came from, you know, the semicircles, you know, we believe in the world being a circle, you know, from the child, from the unborn, to the child, to the young one, to the adult, to the elder, to the ancestor, then to the child. So everything we do, there's a reason for it. So that's why the dots around it, that's why I have some semicircles. Yeah, I couldn't go all the way around to cover my head.
Okay. Cheers.
Unfortunately, though, some of us are ashamed to wear our clothes. You know, for instance, right now, I find out that parliamentarians in Cape Town, when Parliament is getting ready to open, they will actually hire a private plane and go to Paris to buy one outfit. And this is disgusting because their mother, their sister, their auntie at home can make an outfit like this and they would look dazzling. They would look better than the runway model in Paris. You know, so again, you know, it goes back to we need a mental revolution because we have to go back to understanding our worth and being proud of who we are and showing the world how beautiful we are.
Sure.
Good evening, Mom. I just want to, I don't have a question per se. I have a self-acknowledgement about Cape Town in South Africa, and Africa, period. because initially when I started traveling, I refused to go to Africa. In 2017, I had written a book that was supposed to become, I thought, a television series. And I ended up in Cape Town, and I fell in love, but I was so crazy scared at my age, believing what I saw on television. I thought I was going to get on the plane, and they were going to land me in the jungle, and there were going to be flies and distended stomachs. And I got on that South African airline, and everybody was African. And they were proud, and they were cultured, and they were dressed. Then I got to that beautiful, beautiful country of Cape Town. And it was just an eye-opener. The beauty and the surrounding. I think that if we did more for our children in exposing the truths, yes, we have slums in America. We're not going to escape that. We have hunger in America. We're not escaping that. But I went back and forth to South Africa every year after that. Wow. Every year. And the people were proud. They remembered me. I go to a hotel and someone that waited on me, I say, well, you're going to, what's your next job? And oh, no, this is my job for life. They were proud that they got to that opportunity to make money, not to be begging, not to be looking in disarray. And so I came back, self-realized that there's something more to being a black person from Africa than one could ever know. And I thank you for embracing me every time you see me, because what you give is the culture. Well, you know what? Like you said, our family is a long arm.
Yes, it is.
And we gravitated, and I thank you for this opportunity to be able to express my own ignorance and my own growth in my 70s. I thank you.
I want to say something. I agree with you, about the buildings and everything, because we build them just like we build them in this country. As you know, and Baba being alluded to that, if the slavers would come to Africa now, they would not take me because I'm old and decrepit and walking with a cane. No, they would catch her. She's young, very smart, has a degree, has skills, resilient. Those are the people that they took, the cream of the crop. And that's the cream of the crop that built this country. And sometimes people wonder how Africans who were stolen and brought here, how they survived. They survived because they were the cream of the crop. They were the strongest, smartest, youngest, most resilient. And that's how we continue. So we need, and this is what we need to teach our children.
Great.
Mother, I've known you for 55 years. We've known each other for a long time.
Yes.
And the first day I met you, we talked about what it meant to fight for freedom. And today, we're seeing many of the same attacks in Columbus, also the same attacks in Washington, D.C., on the freedom of all the people in this country. What message would you give the citizens in this room about the need to continue to fight for freedom, and what does that mean when you talk about controlling one's own destiny and self-reliance on one's own life?
Well, I don't have a magic advice. but again, one, we have to understand that we are all of us are in this boat together. All of us, this whole room. And the boat is leaking. And if the boat is leaking and we don't put our little fingers in there, each one put a finger in there, each one put a finger. We're all gonna drown together.
Right.
You know, my grandmother used to talk about the world is a garden. You know, a garden full of flowers. You know, and that's what makes the garden beautiful. But you have to cultivate that garden. You know, you have to weed that garden. You know, you have to fertilize that garden. You have to. It comes with responsibility, and like I said before, it's a lifetime commitment. You know, sometimes we have a wave of resistance, and then we think we've arrived. No, we ain't arrived yet. You know, we're not at the mountaintop yet. You know, we have to continue, and that's again why it's so important to pass it on to the young people, because you know, we're too old now. You know, we're dragging now. We're moving a little slower now, but they can continue. You know, and they can continue and even help to push us up the mountain, because now we used to carry them on our backs. Now it's their turn to carry us. You know, but we cannot stop. You know, when we stop, we gone. That's the end. You know, and we have to have hope. You know, my grandmother always talked about looking at the glass as half full, not half empty. So I'm always optimistic that we can do it. And as I said before, whenever people work together, you know, even in the civil rights movement here, when everybody work together, things happen. You know, so it's very important for us to realize that the boat has got a lot of holes, so you better get them fingers ready.
My question was, what do they put in the bananas? Because every time I turn around, you're at a meeting, your mother, your sister, your grandmother, your great-grandmother. Not only are you at the meetings, you're active, and you keep going. So when they say, like, the queen of the village, you're truly the queen of the village. And she has a YouTube channel, so make sure you like Delicious Fries.
Actually, I get that. So something kind of interesting happened since we've been here. So I have a tradition. Every time I go back home, I bring Mama Nozipo a dress, and then when I got back, she was out of town, so I hadn't had a chance to give it to her yet. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give it to her today because I want to give her flowers, right? But then as I saw people coming in, I saw like other people that like brought things to like give you your flowers. And so if you're still here and you have something that you brought, I know I don't see Sean right now, but I saw a couple people that brought some things that they wanted to give Mama Zibo. I wanted to invite you to do it now so we can give her flowers, right, in closing. So come on up.
And while you're coming on up, I know we're out of time. I would like to leave by saying, there's always different things you can say. I would like to leave
Literal flowers.
I would like to leave by saying what my mom always said. Don't be a passenger of your life. Be the driver. Because if you're the passenger, you have to wait, sit on the porch and get cold, waiting for the driver who's always late on colored people time. You have to, and the person will decide, oh, they want to make another stop and another stop, and they may even decide they want to stop at the casino, and all you wanted was to go to the grocery store to buy some groceries. Now you lose your little bitty grocery money, and you go hungry. She used to say that, be the driver. The person might decide to stop at the bar, get drunk, and be a drunk driver, and get to a restaurant, and get into an accident. Be the driver of your life.
Yes.
So when
Thank you everybody for showing up today. It's been a truly honor and privilege to get to spend some time with you and to always, I love to set your feet and always learn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you for coming. A couple housekeeping things. Make sure you get out of jail free card, parking pass. Michelle has them in the back. If on your sheet that looks like this, you have a green sticker on the back. You have won a door prize. You need to see me in the back to collect your door prize. If you have a green sticker. One last thing. On the tables, there's a card. David Myers will be with us September 27th. And he's written a book, Historic Black Settlements of Ohio. If you are from or you have relatives from places like Bellefontaine, Mechanicsburg, London, Urbana, St. Clairsville, there's a reason why these small but thriving black communities were in these places. And he's going to talk about that. He's written a book about it. He's going to talk about it. It's a powerful story. So we'd love for you to be here for that the 27th as well. Have a great evening. Don't forget your parking pass and see me if you have your green sticker.
Peace and hair.